Welcome to your Wednesday Strip Sports Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. A lot to get to in just a moment here. I'll be joined by Marcus Foligno from the Minnesota Wild. Really fun interview. Enjoy getting to know Marcus a little bit better. Having a really nice season for the Wild, and Wild has a big game tonight against Vegas, and so good to talk to him. Really good also to talk to Sarah McLellan from the Star Tribune for some more Wild talk right after that Marcus Foligno interview. So going deep on the Wild today, probably the most the most interesting team in town right now, at least in terms of a positive direction. But first, what did I miss? Well, you haven't missed it yet, and we're not sure exactly what's going to happen, but tonight very well could be the final game of the Richard Pitino coaching tenure with the Gophers men's basketball team. Minnesota plays Northwestern, opening round of the Big Ten tournament, the 13 versus 12 game. Not a spot anybody thought the Gophers would be in a couple of months ago. Certainly not Pitino when they got off to such a hot start, beating a lot of ranked teams, including Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, just off to a really good start. Injuries, of course, have told part of the story. It sounds like Gabe Kalsher and Liam Robbins won't play again in Wednesday night's game. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in this game, and we'll see what happens with his future. Pitino was actually pretty candid about this. I thought that was interesting in his Tuesday media availability. Let's play a clip from that, just because you don't usually hear coaches speak this candidly about any kind of looming job situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reminded every 2 seconds that I'm not going to be back here, right? So, I still have hope. I still believe, but I'm a human being and certainly understand that is an option.
Especially if he is let go soon after this season ends. I want you to read Megan Ryan's story in today's StarTribune.com. All-white leadership in the Gophers athletic department. The lead kind of says it all. I'm going to read from it directly. The University of Minnesota has gone 14 years without hiring a person of color as a head coach and remains the only Big Ten institution without a single person of color in the role of president, athletic director, or head coach. This is a much longer story than just that. A lot of nuance to it, a lot of good interviewing in it, but the fact of it is laid bare in the first paragraph. Basketball coaches an opportunity to change that, right? If they change coaches with Pitino, I know a lot of the prominent names listed early on, at least, the Brian Dutchers of the world, they are not people of color. But we will see if they change that during this hiring process. I'm not sure they will. I hope at the very least that this statistic that I just read, that I'm not reading that again, in 2 or 3 years, that something has changed at that point.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Really happy right now to welcome Marcus Foligno to the podcast. Marcus, welcome to Daily Delivery. How are you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. 7 goals already this season, Marcus. You're on pace for a career high, even in this shortened year. How do you explain the offensive burst to this point this season?
I don't know, really. I mean, sometimes you get bounces in a year, but I feel like, this year just things are working, things are going in. I've been having some chemistry with some line mates from last year that are trickled over into this season now. And, just maybe shooting a little more when I get that shot. It's been going in for myself, but I like to think that it's just kind of comes from the simplicity of my game and the work ethic, and it's been nice to be rewarded. And sometimes you're not always rewarded, but I think for this year, just to try to with that consistent play all year, it's you're bound to get some chances, and right now it's been going in, so it's been nice to contribute.
30% shooting percentage. If you can keep that up the rest of the year, I think you take that, right?
If I get one empty net a game, it's going in, so that's a good thing.
I love it. Now, the game against Vegas last week, Wednesday, you guys lose the lead late. You got the Zach Parise healthy scratch. I made a big deal of it. I think some other people did too, wondering if that could be a negative turning point in the season. As a leader on this team, such as you are, how did you approach that situation as it pertained to keeping the locker room and the season on track?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a tough decision. I mean, Zach has been, such a big face for this franchise and a big player for us. And, obviously it's been a kind of a frustrating year for himself when it comes to kind of production. But, one thing about Zach is his work ethic's always there. And, it rubs off on guys. I think it's something that when I came into Minnesota, learned a lot from that, just a consistent play that he's always brought. And it just came from a situation where coaches just wanted to keep guys accountable and to keep a room at a certain level, and whether you understand it or agree with it or not, it is what it is, and it can happen to Zach, it can happen to a young guy, it can happen to anyone. I think that's what the message that is sent, and I think it does it keep you on your toes as a player in general? I think so, and we just moved on as a team after that. I think that was the biggest thing, is that, leaders led after that. And when Zach got back in the lineup the next game, it was just, back to work. And, we had a big win in Phoenix that day when he came back. So it was just something that, these things happen, and it's all about how you respond. And Zach's type of person that responds really well.
It felt like Monday's win over Vegas was a big deal. Not just that you won, but, after you had the overtime loss, you had the loss to them in Vegas, but you got 2-0 shutout, the empty net at the end. I know it's just 1 out of 56 games this year, but did that feel like a significant game to you as well?
Yeah, it was big for us. I think just the heartbreaker that we lost in the first game of the season, just the come from behind win that they had, and then to have an okay game and to be close going in the third, and then obviously it was a 5-1 or whatever it was that ended up being, but we felt like we were right there, and we talked about it all year. We don't want to be the team that always looks at a Vegas or Colorado and says, well, we played pretty well against them, but we didn't get 2 points, but we're still satisfied. We don't want to be that team this year. We want to be the team that teams come in and play us and have a tough time competing against us and worrying about what we're going to be like every night. So that's kind of the mental aspect of it that we're trying to change, and we want to be first place. That's it. We want to win. We want to win as many games and have a lot of confidence going into the playoffs. But so to be a team like Vegas, I know they had some top players out, but just to shut them out, Kahkonen did a great job in net, and really it was a grinding game. But to give up nothing was a big confidence boost for us.
You had the Gordie Howe hat trick a couple of weeks ago against San Jose. Is that about as good as it gets for a player like you, or is that are there loftier goals beyond that for you?
Yeah, I think the type of player I am, I think that's a hat trick, and for some other skilled guys. So that's just, I think when you look at it, it's kind of the complete game. Way I was brought up, and obviously just watching that type of hockey my whole life, it's when you can do that, I think you tick off a lot of the check mark a lot of the boxes that are kind of looked at when it comes to big power forwards. So, it happens. It's obviously a fight always happens once in a while, but to contribute to while being physical is something that I take pride in, and it's nice to get the Gordie Howe hat trick from time to time.
Goal, assist, fight. You even let up on the guy. You had to in that one.
Yeah, just what I think when I fought enough times in this league now. When you grab a hold of someone, you kind of know. You kind of know if you're in for one, and you kind of know if you got a guy. So I've been on the receiving end a couple of times, and you're on the giving end. So it's just one of those things where the respect of that kind of the job of what comes with fighting kind of takes over. And I think when you're winning, you there's no reason to kind of keep going at the guy.
Dean Evason took over last year as head coach, had the interim tag removed. You guys are off to a pretty good start this year. What are the strengths that you've seen from him as a coach that have kind of emerged as he's grown into that role and been put in charge of this team?
His communication is probably one of the best I've seen. The way he talks to guys and gets to guys. I think just his energy level is something that sparks guys and sparks our team. There's been videos of him on the bench when we score, and it looks like he tackles every player or trainer and coaching staff on the bench. So no one's really safe, but it's just that he's got a lot of passion for coming to the rink every day, and it rubs off on all of us. And again, when it comes to actual coaching, the systems and all that stuff, it's detailed, it's broken down, and he doesn't also hammer us with all this info and all this video and tire us out that way. He knows to read the room. And that's one thing that I think we respond well to, especially having some veterans on our team. Just, you got to understand when to push guys and when to hold off. And especially this season with it being so crazy and so many games and little practicing, our coaching staff and led by Dino obviously has done a really good job of tweaking their kind of approach to it. And, right now we have everyone on the same page, and it's been great. And, it starts at the top.
You're a little bit behind Kaprizov in the points race. You have, I think, one more goal than he does, but what's the ceiling for a player like that now that you've got a chance to see him for a little while here?
I remind him every day until he passes me that I got more goals than him, but he's phenomenal. Honestly, he's I don't think I'll ever be close like this again to him in points, and I hope that's the case. He's a guy that's going to take off, and I mean, it's his first season, and in a season like we're having, it's kind of crazy how well he's done, and just something that he's a guy that just comes to the rink every day and works hard and doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal. It's something that's pretty spectacular. So he's a guy that's going to be a huge part of our future.
You got 10 players on this team with at least 4 goals, you and Kaprizov among them. What does that tell you about this team? Just how much depth, I guess, that you guys have had with the scoring and the balance so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think you look at any team, that's kind of going forward and wants success. I think the biggest part is the balance. And Kev is now, I think, taken off. And we saw that, great game by him last game and the goals that he can do and the shiftiness that he has. And we're getting, production from Greenway and Joel Eriksson Ek. And, Hartman has been playing great until he got injured a little bit. But we're getting that. And that's what you need, I think, moving forward. We're getting a lot of guys. Zuccarello's come in and been lights out for us. So it's something that we just need to keep continuing. And every team I think you look at that has a chance of winning the Stanley Cup has that depth scoring. And it's something right now that we have on our team.
Couple more things for you. You're known as Moose. Maybe you can remind listeners where you got that nickname, and maybe could you assign other animal nicknames to some of your other Wild teammates?
Oh man. Yeah. So I got the nickname probably from, I don't know if it was from my sisters or someone in my family kind of named it. I think when I was younger, I was uncoordinated. I wasn't the Mark Messier Moose. I was just uncoordinated like a moose out there. I think I was more on the ice falling down and stuff like that when I started playing hockey. So whenever a family would come out and watch me, they always had a good chuckle. So that's where that comes from. So it's not the best Moose nickname, but I'll take it. You could be called a lot worse in this league. But, oh, man, if I was to assign some other animal nicknames, it's actually pretty common. I mean, Jordan Greenway could probably be like a sloth or something. He's just always tired. And he's a couch potato, that guy. So he likes to relax, pick his feet up and not move a lot during the day until he's on the ice. So we could probably give him something like that. And I don't know. I have to think about that one right now.
Jordan Greenway sloth. I like that.
Sloth.
Jordan Greenway the sloth. Let's make that one stick. I'm sure he would love. I'm sure he loved that nickname if that became part of his permanent game. Yeah. Marcus, last thing. When you're in charge of locker room music, what are you most likely to play?
In the morning, I'm always the one that turns it on, but I'm a big country guy. So the morning we always do country. We try to keep it easy and get a little bit of country going, a little party songs there. So nice chill morning vibe. And then when I get to the rink, usually Matt Dumba takes over right when it gets time to get closer to game time. But I kind of put on some. Well, it just depends on what we're doing. Maybe we'll put some rock on, or we'll end up using probably. There's this mix. I don't know, I think it's called Two Friends or something like that. Big something mix, and it's a big mashup of all these amazing songs. So we've been listening to that lately, and it's been kind of sparking our win streak. So we've been playing that every game.
Never mess with the winning streak. That's right. Never mess with something's going right. Well, Marcus Foligno, thank you so much for joining Daily Delivery today. Good luck the rest of the season. Wednesday rematch against Vegas and beyond that. Take care. All right.
Thank you very much. Thanks again for having me.
Continuing a theme today, a lot of Wild talk on today's Daily Delivery podcast. Sarah McLellan, who covers the Wild for the Star Tribune, is joining me right now. Interesting team since we last talked a couple weeks ago. They went on a hot streak, and then we had controversy is probably the wrong word, but some drama a little bit out in Vegas with how the first game ended out there, and then Zach Parise being a healthy scratch for the Wednesday rematch. I guess talk me through how that all unfolded in your, from your coverage perspective, and kind of where, I guess, the importance in particular too of Monday's win, given the drama that happened last week.
You know what? It was obviously, to hear Zach explain it, it was all about the shift at the end of that game in Vegas. That, obviously Vegas tied the game late and then won 5-4 in overtime. The way he explained it is, he was on the ice with Marcus Foligno. He was trying to get Foligno an empty net goal. That would have been Foligno's first career hat trick if he scored into an empty net goal. But that bona fide chance never came about. And so Foligno went for a line change, and Zach Parise didn't. He said he didn't think it was a good idea for him to change, so he stayed out there. Obviously, the Wild gets hemmed in its own zone. And actually, it really magnified Parise's presence on the ice, because the puck ended up deflecting off his stick before the game tying goal. He got a piece of it. Vegas put it towards the net, and it was in the back of the net. So it was that, hyperextended shift that led to the benching, especially in late game situations. And even I think throughout games, we've kind of been able to detect that, fresh legs, fresh bodies, short shifts is a real mantra of this team under Coach Dean Evason. You see it on the penalty kill. Really doesn't matter who's out there. They have their two forwards, and they're constantly rotating after getting clears. It's just the way that this team clearly wants to play, is to be fresh. And a shift over a minute and a half obviously doesn't fall into that. And he was punished for it. And so it's probably a decision that stands out, because we don't usually see that. We don't usually see, the star or the leader type players always atone for gaffes and mistakes like that. But he did. And I think it really kind of hammered home this philosophical shift, or this evolution that we're seeing with the Wild. And it started, when Bill Guerin took over, and we've seen the roster turnover. But I think it really underscores the fact that no one is bigger than the team. This is about the team. And I think I've said on here before, like you hear it in Evason's messaging. He isn't one to single out players, and he isn't one to, obviously gloss over team accomplishments rather than like what individuals are doing. Clearly, that's tough when you do have individual players playing very well. Like, there are key players on this lineup, make no mistake. But it is very much about the team. And I think that just underscored that. And this is a shift for this organization. It is a new lineup. It is a new roster. It is a new coach. And, this we before me mentality really seems to be at the heart of that. And I think that decision to scratch Parise just completely underscored that and made it clear, what the ideology of this organization wants it to be.
Marcus Foligno talked a little bit about that earlier on the podcast, about how, that does it put you on your toes a little bit as a player to see that can happen to someone like Zach Parise? Yeah, it does. Do you sense that this is 100% in the rearview mirror? Like I know Dean Evason said, we had a good meeting, we moved on. You feel like this is a non-story at this point, particularly after Monday's win, or do you feel like there's still kind of behind the scenes talk about, wow, that really happened and this has implications going forward?
I think as far as a lineup, how the team's playing, I think they've moved on. Zach Parise is back in the lineup. He's been back in the lineup. I know Evason has been, talking encouragingly about the way that Parise has been playing. He helped set up a goal in Arizona. I think he feels he's on the right track to sort of, rectify his season, because it has been a very uneven season for Parise as a whole. I think the benching was just kind of a microcosm of what's gone wrong this season for Parise. So I think in that regard, like, he's back in the lineup, he's here. But is there a lingering effect from an aftershock from that type of decision? I mean, you just said it. Players are aware now. Players know very much so that, your decisions are being looked at and scrutinized, and, you have to play for the better of the team, and, not always, be more mindful of that than, maybe going for an empty net goal or, extending shifts. I just think that's obviously very clear now on the radar, but lineup wise, he's been back in there. I think they've made adjustments around him, putting him with Kevin Fiala. We've seen the centers rotate. So I think they're still obviously trying to find that chemistry and mix, but he's in the lineup. And so from that regard, I think it's been, full steam ahead.
The hiccup in Vegas was basically one of the only interruptions in what has been a really good stretch for them. I believe they're now 8-2-1 maybe in their last 11, including the win over Vegas in the the rematch back at XL Energy Center Monday. They play again Wednesday night now against Vegas, and these kind of pairing of games we're seeing all season long. A lot of that good work done by Kaapo Kahkonen, who was in the net again for that 2-0 shutout Monday. What can you tell me about the emergence of him? He's a rookie. Obviously, we saw a little taste of him last season, but where do you think they are in terms of how their confidence level in him and how we might see him deployed now that Cam Talbot is back and healthy, and how that mix goes in at least in the near term?
It has probably made the organization take a look at its goaltending long term, maybe sooner than they thought. I think initially the thought process was, maybe Kaapo would get some time in the NHL this season, but it was Cam Talbot number 1, Alex Stalock number 2. Like that was the plan. Obviously, that changed with Stalock in the COVID protocols and being out so long. Opened the door for Kahkonen to get this time with the NHL squad, and he just ran with it. The injury to Cam Talbot gave him, steady reps. He took advantage of that. Talbot going into the COVID protocols again gave him probably more minutes and games than he would have, otherwise seen. And he just wins. He just finds a way to backstop this team to success. And, I think it's kind of been that staircase though. I mean, he's put the time in the minors. He's the reigning AHL, goalie of the year. He has the accolades. So he's put his time in. And sometimes you just need that opening, and he's taken advantage of it. I think what, really could kind of point to some long-term success. And again, perhaps, a debate about, is he for sure number 1? When can he take over full time? I think, what's important when you look at that question is the fact that the style he plays does seem very sustainable, in the sense that, this isn't a goalie on a run playing well because he's diving everywhere and it's highlight reel saves and he's playing out of his mind to get results. He is very economical. He is very poised. He's, tends to be in the right place at the right time, which is a goalie, when you want pucks to hit you, that's half the battle. So I think the fact that he plays a way that I think steadies a team, gives a team confidence. You don't have to worry about him, flopping around and trying to make saves reactively. I think that bodes well for his future. And like I said, it probably makes the organization examine the hierarchy maybe a little sooner than they thought. Cam Talbot's on a 3-year contract, was brought in to be the number 1. But I think now the question is, at some point during that lifespan, does Kahkonen, exceed him? And does the partnership turn? And he's maybe now supporting Kahkonen's development. I think that's a question that obviously doesn't need to be answered now. Both goalies are essential in this 56-game sprint to the finish line. I think we're going to continue to see a rotation, but it's probably, a question that gets looked at maybe next season, probably definitely the season after, if these two are still obviously the tandem that the team is relying on.
The head coach seems to like steady play in general, and every time I look up, he's saying something nice about Kaapo. Have you picked up on that? I'm sure you have. You're in way more of these Zooms than I am, but have you picked up on the head coach seems to like this goalie in particular?
I think, the praise is just, it's warranted. I think that the setting too, hockey so much, I think, is about getting an opportunity and getting that chance to show what you have. When especially the spots like a goalie, they're so limited. There's not 5 starting pitchers. There's not that type of depth necessarily that we see in other sports. So for a goalie, so much it is about opportunity. And I think anytime, a team, an organization, a coach sees someone take advantage, I think it's worth acknowledging. And what he's doing and leading this team and backstopping this team, it's not like he's had to come in and play savior. Goaltending hasn't been an issue this season for this team. Like when Cam Talbot's been in there, he's been steady as well. So to just kind of continue that as a 24-year-old rookie, I think it is complimentary. And, it's going to be interesting to see, as this team gets closer to trying to solidify a playoff spot, if he can keep it up and if the team continues to kind of feed off that energy, that steadiness. So far it's working. And I think that's obviously was an area the team tried to address in the offseason. Devin Dubnyk was traded. Cam Talbot was brought in. Even the goaltending coach changed. So this was definitely like on the checklist of, areas to fix and address. And so far it's worked out for them.
Last thing for you. Even with all the good we've seen, a lot of balanced scoring, a lot of wins lately, the power play remains a bit of a mystery. Was it 5 for 74 now and then on a pretty negative 0 for streak? I think I saw a stat the other day that they're actually scoring, on a per minute basis more on 5-on-5 than they are in power plays, which should never happen. If they can figure this out, first of all, can they figure this out? And B, if they can get this into at least an average power play, how much more dangerous can they be?
It is so baffling because the personnel, like you said, that thrives at 5-on-5 is struggling to take advantage when they have an extra player on the ice. Like it really can be mind-boggling that it's been this much of a struggle. I think obviously the personnel is there to figure this out because these are the players that are scoring, like I said, at even strength. Kevin Fiala, Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Zuccarello, these are the offensive starters and they've proven they can do that. So I don't think there's too much of a concern with who they are deploying. Most times, maybe not Monday's game, but most times they haven't really had trouble getting into the zone, setting up. They've had really good puck movement, but it really has just been that execution, that finishing it off. Clearly after what happened in Monday night's game where they did look a little bit more disorganized, they had trouble off the faceoffs, they had trouble just gaining the possession. That stuff needs to improve. But if it gets back to how the team has looked, for most of this season, it really just comes down to execution. And so, maybe it is trying to get a little bit more gritty. Maybe it's not the pretty plays. Maybe it is loading up the middle of the ice with a Marcus Foligno or a Jordan Greenway and trying to, these are players who get used on the power play, but really trying to work the scheme so it is a gritty, dirty type goal in front where it's a rebound and there's just traffic and bodies. Maybe it is something as simple as trying to focus on that because all the other pieces seem to be there. And I think right now the goaltending, obviously the 5-on-5 scoring is kind of glossing over and making it so this isn't an eyesore. But you're right. Like if these games get tighter and we do start to see more 2-0, 1-0, 3-2 type games and the power play doesn't step up, it could really start to cost the team points and really determine, where it falls in the standings down the stretch. So it's an issue. I still think there's time, though, for the Wild to figure it out.
Sarah always writes like she's on the power play. Read her stuff on Star Tribune, startribune.com. Sarah McLellan, thanks again for joining me here today on Daily Delivery.
Thank you.
Let's end things with the cooler. It would not be the Vikings if they were not searching for yet another kicker. Dan Bailey released on Tuesday. I've got a couple, I don't know if they're fun facts, but I've got a couple facts for you guys that you can interpret one of two ways. So, overall, in the non-playoff years under Mike Zimmer, Vikings kickers have gone 90 for 120 on field goal attempts. That's 75%. That's not good in this modern era of football. It's well below the average. Overall, in the 3 playoff years under Zimmer, their field goal kickers have gone 93 for 106 on field goals, 87.7%. All of those playoff years were odd years, of course. 2015, 17, and 19. The non-playoff years were even years. 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020. What does that all mean? Well, one of two things, I guess. Either A, when there's drama and the Vikings are losing, kicking is a big part of it. I think it was in 2020 for sure. I think 2018 you could make that case. 2016 you could certainly make that case. Or you could also make the case that there's some weird, odd, even mojo going on and something good is about to happen, guys, in 2021. Interpret it however you will. You're a Vikings fan, so you're probably going to interpret the negative, but those are just the facts that I'm laying out for you right now. That'll do it for today. Thanks for listening to Daily Delivery. Download this podcast, subscribe, write a review. We'll be back at it on Thursday. Chris Hine from the Star Tribune expected to be on to set up the second half of the Timberwolves season. And, of course, I'll be watching to see what happens Wednesday night with the Gophers men's basketball team as well. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you tomorrow.